As US Navy SEALs were preparing to storm bin Laden's now infamous compound in Pakistan a year ago, two of his recently trained European recruits were sneaking out of the country on a mission to cause carnage. They were headed for Vienna and Berlin. But not long after they returned to Europe, one of them was being questioned at this police station. He was arrested and searched, and hidden in his underwear, police found memory recording devices like these. Buried deep in the devices was a pornographic video, and hidden in files inside that were what police believe were more than 100 secret Al-Qaeda documents. Documents that included detailed accounts of the planning for some of Al-Qaeda's biggest attacks and ideas for future operations, apparently drawn up by some of the terror group's most senior operatives 3 years ago.
According to the German Federal Criminal Police, must have been written up by the inner core of Al-Qaeda.
Investigative journalist Yassin Mushabash works for Germany's Die Zeit newspaper and was the first to report on the documents. Among Al-Qaeda's plans, attacks like the one in Mumbai, India in 2008, when 10 Pakistani militants armed with automatic weapons on a suicide mission stormed 3 hotels, killing more than 160 people.
And dealing with... Okay, all right.
And another plan, the most chilling yet.
He says that we could hijack a passenger ship on the sea and then use it to pressurize the public. What he most likely means is that, you know, they would then start executing passengers on those ships and demand the release of particular prisoners.
They would dress passengers in orange jumpsuits, mimicking Al-Qaeda prisoners in Gitmo. Executions would be quickly uploaded to an Al-Qaeda website. Also in the plan's document, titled Future Works, to flood Europe with trained terrorists and overwhelm counter-terrorism agencies.
But the author seems to be convinced that Al-Qaeda should be pursuing a two-track strategy of low-cost, low-damage attacks and large-scale attacks.
Like the 9/11 attack?
Yes. The reason being that if Al-Qaeda were to pursue only large-scale attacks and those are foiled, then they have nothing.
And that's where these two men sent back to Europe fit into Al-Qaeda's planning. Yusuf Ochak, seen here in a militant video threatening Germany, and 22-year-old Maksud Lodin, the man found with the memory sticks. German prosecutors allege their job was to recruit a network of suicide attackers.
We do not know what these two young men were actually up to, but there are certain information in those files that would make it plausible to assume that they probably were thinking of a Mumbai-style attack.
They are currently on trial in Berlin and have denied being members of a terrorist organization. Other files hidden deep in that porn video show not only Al-Qaeda's thinking about the future, but also shed light on the planning of past attacks and elaborate efforts to fool intelligence services. US intelligence sources tell CNN this information is pure gold, that it contains details of some of Al-Qaeda's most dangerous attacks, including the attack on the London subway 7 years ago. "52 were killed, several hundred injured. The mastermind of that attack, Rashid Rauf, a British member of Al-Qaeda. In one of the documents found in Berlin, he spells out his role in that attack. As this bomber recorded his martyrdom statement,
"What you have witnessed now is only the beginning."
Rauf writes he was in the room. Off camera, he set up a computer with the scripted statement. Rauf also reveals there was a short list of 3 targets: the Bank of England, the G8 summit that would be taking place in Scotland, and the London subway. they picked the subway because it required less explosives. Ralph's big takeaway from the success of this team was the time he spent with them, helping them memorize codes so they could communicate securely, teaching them counter-surveillance techniques, to switch their phones, how to use email accounts and internet chats. He also reveals that 2 of the bombers were sure they were being watched by British intelligence because some of their associates had been arrested in connection with another plot. They acted up that life was normal, going to the movies, joking out loud a lot. A subsequent inquiry in Britain found that the intelligence service, MI5, were aware of the 2 men and their connections, but didn't think they posed a threat. Even as London was recovering from that terrible day, Ralph was planning a devastating follow-up, including a failed mass transit attack 2 weeks later, July 21st.
Looks like a confirmation that Al-Qaeda was behind the 21/7 plot as well, something which I don't think was that clear before.
According to a document written by Ralph, the 721 ringleader, Mukhtar Syed Ibrahim, flew from London's Heathrow Airport to Pakistan in late 2004. British intelligence was suspicious and had asked Pakistani security services to watch him. Even so, he was able to travel to an Al-Qaeda camp and get explosives training. But Ibrahim and his fellow plotters were unable to detonate their bombs. Ralph blamed it on a communications failure. He said that the 7/7 bombers had had the same problem with their bomb making, but because they'd spent more time learning codes and secure communication, he was able to help them sort their problem out. The 721 plotters, he said, had not had so much communications training, and they lost contact with him. Londoners were lucky. All the time, Ralph and Al-Qaeda explosives experts were refining their skills and moving to their next big plot. To bring down planes using liquid explosives. It's why to this day we are limited to small amounts of liquids on flights. Ralph recalled that just 400 grams of high explosives had brought down Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie in Scotland in 1988. And after several trial runs, devised a plan to detonate similar-sized bombs of hydrogen peroxide on board transatlantic flights. His document reveals Al-Qaeda's technical expertise. They knew which chemicals could pass undetected through an airport scanner, which dyes to use to make the liquid look like soda and not damage the explosives, and how to turn a AA battery into a detonator. All achieved through determined experimentation in Pakistan. That large plot was eventually broken up after British intelligence began tracking some of those involved. Even so, Ralph wrote that some of the brothers involved were still at large. Ralph himself was arrested in Pakistan only to escape, before being killed in a drone strike in 2008. US counter-terrorism sources say his death was a major blow to Al-Qaeda, his organizational skills and focus on security sorely missed. A recurring theme in the Berlin documents, Al-Qaeda is under pressure, needs to adapt.
If you read the Future Works document, it clearly delivers the notion that Al-Qaeda knows that they are being followed very closely. It explicitly says that the Western security institutions have become very good at foiling attacks, and that they have to come up with new ways and better plotting.
And that's just what they are trying to do. It may be that the future brings the sort of lone gunman attacks that recently left 7 people dead in France, rather than anything complex like 9/11. No coincidence that a year after these documents were written, European intelligence agencies were scrambling to deal with exactly the sort of plot they outline, a low-cost assault along the lines of the Mumbai attack.
Would I say that the Euro plot is off the table? No. But I believe that the general idea is still alive, and I believe that as soon as Al-Qaeda believes that they have the capacities to realistically go after that sort of scenario, they will immediately do it.
German prosecutors say that Yusuf Ochak and Maksud Lodin, the pair who came back to Europe last year, may have been intended as the latest wave of attackers. But their names were on a watch list and triggered an alert when they arrived. Lodin and Ochak's trial is expected to last several more weeks. Their case appears to be living proof that the blueprint laid out in the documents is still active for carnage in Europe. Al-Qaeda has not changed its ambitions. And if it finds another Rashid Rauf, it may yet be able to translate those ambitions into devastating attacks.